How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Gimel, I think. Why not? I'm just looking at something. Wow. What am I to tell you? Today we're studying Daf Kuf Gimel of Masechta BavaMetzia, friends. So we already basically did Kuf Gimel and Aleph, which is kind of awesome. So we're going to start the ninth parak of Masechta BavaMetzia, which is awesome because it's like basically after the ninth parak, there's like 10 parak is like 2 daf, So like this is really the last big push in Masechta BavaMetzia, which is amazing. Friends, are you all as excited as I am? I mean, I say this like every single day. I'm just so excited. I feel like BavaMetzia has been like the biggest freaking accomplishment of my life. Do you think maybe learning BavaMetzia is like the biggest accomplishment of your life? Maybe. Would you dismiss it outright? I don't know. What have you done in your life that's so amazing that BavaMetzia doesn't compare? BavaMetzia has been mind-blowing. I'm still waiting to find out in WhatsApp if anybody. I feel like maybe maybe I'm the only one who thinks that way. And everyone's like, "What's he talking about? What does he love so much about BavaMetzia?" You just don't want to tell me. You don't want to break my spirit. You won't break my spirit. All right, maybe you will. All right. No, I have to be strong. You won't break my spirit. All right, here we go. Daf Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph. All right, we're going to start the ninth parak of Masechta BavaMetzia. Makabel Sode me Chaveru. Okay, wow. Oh, wow. What do we? Wow. All right. Here we go. There's like, I've heard like, some people say that like when you get towards the end of the Masechta, you already start to get like, kind of like a taste of the upcoming Masechta. So I definitely kind of feel that way over here, right? I've only learned like small parts of Baba Basra, but I think Baba Basra talks about like property and things like that, land. So here, Makabel Soda Mechaveru. Anyways, we talked about this already recently about Kablonus and Chachronus, that be'etzem when it comes to a field, you can share crop the field, alright? Sharecropping a field would be like you work, so Shimon owns the field. Reuven, though, is going to work the field. Reuven will receive a percentage of the yield, and the rest will go to Shimon. Okay, so that is sharecropping, that they divide, right? It's percentage base of the yield, right? Now, technically speaking, if he just slacks off and doesn't, we're going to get to it. It's going to be a Mishnah tomorrow. Technically, I guess if he slacks off and he doesn't produce anything, so nobody gets anything, right? Because if it's percentage, let's say it's 50-50, 50% of 0 is 0, right? So that, although we're going to learn tomorrow that then he has to commit, whatever, he has to pay. Anyways, okay, based on what it would have yielded. Anyways, but the point is that it's percentage based when it comes to sharecropping. Chachronus is be'etzem renting the field, right? Meaning, if you rent it with money, so I think that would be called socher, to rent it, but chachronus is you rent it with a certain amount of crops, so I'll give you X amount of crops. So that's more of a rental, meaning even if you sit around and do nothing, and you don't work the field, you still have to then go to the market and buy that produce and give it to the owner of the field. You're committing to pay for it. It's like a rental, right? I mean, you rent the field for X amount of money for the year. I don't care if you work it, you don't work it, you still have to pay. So the same thing would be with Chachronus. It's more of a rental than a sharecropping agreement. So, Hamakabel Sodom Chaver. So here when we say Hamakabel, so that's Kablonus, it's sharecropping, we're going to see, for here I think it can mean really both, right? Sharecropping as well as sort of renting. We're going to see in tomorrow's daf that for the first two Mishnayos are kind of applicable both to sharecropping and renting, but then from all the subsequent, we're going to see a lot of subsequent Mishnayos called like Hamakabel Soda Mechaver, right? This one starts with Hamakabel Soda Mechaver, the next one starts with Hamakabel Soda Mechaver, the next one after that starts with Hamakabel Soda Mechaver, and the one after that, and the one after that. Like all of them kind of start with Hamakabel Soda Mechaver. Some of them after the second one, some of them are going to be applicable to kablonos, and some of them are going to be applicable to chachronos, but this is really applicable to both. Now, so Ruvain is sharecropping on Shimon's land. Mokim shenohagu liktzor yiktzor. So if the minig amokim, right, if the way that they do things in that neck of the woods is that they harvest the crop with a sickle, so you harvest the crop with a sickle. Lakar yakar. If the mahalach is that they would uproot the whole plant, so you uproot the whole plant. Lachrosh achorav yachrosh. And if what they would do is after you harvested, you would then plow the field to uproot any grasses and things that are there. So do that. Whatever the minig, hakol kaminig amadino, everything is like the minig. And just like they will divide up I guess this refers specifically to chachronus, to sharecropping. I'm sorry, sharecropping is kablonos. I'm sorry, but yes, this would have right, because we're talking about splitting. Splitting is a sharecropping thing, a kablonos thing, not a rental thing. So kshem shecholkim b'tvueh, just like they divide the produce, kacholkim b'tevin uvakash, they also divide up the different kinds of straws. Kshem shecholkim b'yayin, just like they would divide up the wine, kacholkim Bizmoris uvakanim, they would also divide up the prunings and the canes. The canes, I guess, like sticks that they would use. The Gemara is going to talk about it a little bit. Ushneim misapkin esakonim, and both the Reuven and Shimon both kind of split. Right. They both provide these canes. All right. Says the Gemara. Tana makom shnagu liktzar eino rashay la'akar. Okay, so we're learning a brisa that if the minig of the place is to harvest with a sickle, so then you're not allowed to uproot the whole plant. Now, the difference between harvesting with a sickle, first of all, I must sort of pre-state, I must pre-say, I must preface, I must preface, I am not a farmer. As I've said many times, I don't farm. I'm not a farmer. I go to Shuk Machne Yehuda and I buy things, but I don't farm them. So I'll just explain based on my totally non-farming knowledge, which is basically whatever knowledge I need to scrape together to convince myself that I know what I'm talking about on an entry level, in order for me to go weiter, basically. So, basically, in order for us to go weiter, we will say that when you harvest with a sickle, I mean, who am I to talk about harvesting with sickles? But all right, go on YouTube and type in harvesting with a sickle. All right. So you basically go up to the plant and a sickle is like a blade kind of thing, and you cut the plant. But you don't uproot the plant, you just cut it down, right? But like you'll still be like stubble, I don't know if the stubble is a technical term. All right. So Tana makom shenagu liktzar eno rashay la'akor. So in a place where the minig was that they would harvest, where they would sickle it. So eno rashay la'akor, you can't uproot it. La'akor, if the minig is to uproot it, eno rashay liktzar, you can't sickle it. Ushneim ma'akvin ze al ze. And both Shimon and Ruvain, either one can object. Liktzor and Rasha lakor. Now, when it comes to, so if the minig is to sickle, so then he can't uproot it. Hai Omar ba'ino de tizbon li aroy. So if it is if it's Reuven, the sharecropper, who wants to uproot the meaning. So we're saying, right, it's a place where liktzor, right, in a rasha lakor. If the minig is to sickle, so you can't uproot. So let's say Reuven, the sharecropper, wants to uproot. So we're saying Shimon can say, I don't want you to uproot, right? Because the sort of stubble is then going to be able to be used to fertilize the field, and if you uproot the whole plant, then we lose that. And if Shimon says, hey, Reuven, I'd like for you to uproot the plants, Lo Matzina, Reuven could say, I don't want to. It's a lot more work to uproot than to sickle. And the minig over here is to sickle. We're going to sickle. Lakar and Rasha Liktzor. And now the fakert is also true. If the minig is that they uproot the plants, well then he's not, he can't sickle. Hi Omar Ba'ino de Tinoker Arai, right? So if Reuven wants to sickle, Shimon can say, no, around here we uproot, and I want it to be uprooted because that way, what does Rashi say? The tinaka should nekiya she'ena tzricha lezevel. That I guess if you uproot the plant, then the ground will be clean and you won't need to fertilize it as much. I'm not a farmer. I'm not a farmer, Chev. I'm not a farmer. Not a farmer. But if you uproot it, then you won't have to fertilize it as much. All right. Not a farmer. V'hai Omar ba'ino tivno. And now if Shimon, however, wants to harvest instead of uproot, Reuven can say, no, I want to uproot because I want the straw, I guess, for my animals or whatever. All right. Why do I need it to say that either one can, prevent the other? Matam kamer. It's explaining the reason. I mean, matam liktzor and Rashi lakor and Rashi liktzor. How come if the minig is to sickle, you're not allowed to uproot, and if the minig is to uproot, you're not allowed to sickle? Mishum d'shnei makvin zelzeh. The reason is because either one of them can say, "Hey, I want to do it the way that we do it in these necks of the woods." Lachrosh achor v'yachrosh. If the minig is that after the harvest you plow, so you do that. Pshita, that's obvious. If the minig is to plow, you plow. Well, it's talking about a place where the people don't weed. The people don't weed. The people don't weed, right? So we're talking about in a place where be'etzim, so what are you doing? So after you harvest, you plow the field. The point of plowing the field, again, I'm not a farmer, but the point of plowing the field is that if whatever grasses are there that might interfere with, I guess, next year's growth, you want to uproot and pull them out so that they're not going to be annoying. Now, technically speaking, I guess a different way you could theoretically do it is you could weed the field. Take a hoe. Look at me, farmer over here. You take a hoe and you weed, you like pull out the weeds and stuff, and I guess that's like a similar mahalach, okay? So when we're talking about plowing to pull up the grasses and stuff, that's in a place where they wouldn't weed, okay? But this chevraman, right? They don't weed, but he weeded. So I may have thought to say, Reuven could say, look, the reason why I weeded is I figured if I weeded, I wouldn't have to plow. That if he was planning to not plow, then they would have had to sort of included that in their deal. But that wasn't included, and therefore he needs to plow. It is all like the custom of the place. When we say everything, what's that coming to include? To include that which we taught in which the rabbis taught. Makim, where am I? Makim shinagu lahaskir ilonis al gabe karke. So if the minig is so if Shimon is renting or sharecropping the land, if the minig is that if there's a what kind of fruits do you like? What kind of fruits do you like? You like dates? Of course. So if there's a date palm on the tree, on the land, so if the minig is that if Ruvain is kind of, sharecropping or renting this property, and on the property there is a palm tree, a date palm. So if the minig is that Ruvain would be allowed to, right, those dates are his. He's renting the field, he gets the dates. So, again, if the minig is that included in the rental was any fruit producing trees on the property, maskirin, well then, they are rented with the property. Oh my gosh. Excuse me 1 second. Wow, that was somewhat unexpected. Alright, maybe I'll just have to be talking like this for the rest of the daf. Alright. Remember a few years ago when I, in Masechta Tainis, when I had to record with no voice at all? That was crazy. But I did it. I did it for the people at Babylon Talmud. I did it for the people at Babylon Talmud. Sakol asuyi mai. Asuyi hadutan rabbanon. Again, makom shnagu lahaskir ilonis agabe karka maskirin. So if the minig is that with the rental comes the fruit trees, so give all the fruit trees are included. Makom she'ein nagu lahaskir ein maskir. In a place where the minig is that the fruit trees are not included and they still belong to Shimon, to the owner, well then they're not included. They still belong to Shimon. So makom shnagu lahaskir maskirin. So if the minig is that included in the rental are the fruit trees, so then they're included. Pshita, obviously, if that's the minig, that's the minig. Lo tzricha d'chuli alma yaive betilsa ve'ozal iu ve'yaiva beriva. Well, it's talking about a scenario where most sharecropping agreements are for a third, meaning the sharecropper keeps 2/3 of the yield, and the owner gets the remaining third. But in this case, the owner said, "Look, keep 3/4. I'll only take 1/4." So now, why do you think he's doing that? Why do you think he's saying I'll accept less than the standard? You know why? Because he's assuming that he's gonna have access to the fruit trees. Now, remember, this is talking about a place where the minig is, the custom is that the fruit trees are included in the rental. But now, what's the chiddush? The chiddush is, well, here you have this guy, the owner, Shimon, who's saying, you know what? I'm only going to take 25% of the crop. So generally, the sharecroppers would give 1/3 of the yield to the owner. But Shimon says, you know what? V'yayve berive says, only give me 25%, not 33. So Ma'adutema may have thought to say, the Omerle, that Shimon can then say to Ruvain, by the way, why do you think it was that I said, I'll settle for 25, that's enough. The reason why I gave you more, I gave you 75% to take home, by the way, that of course was because I'm not planning to give you the fruits of the fruit trees. Those are for me. Kamash Malon, what it comes to teach us, that if that was the case, that Shimon was planning to take the fruits from the fruit trees, since this is a place where the fruit trees are generally included in the rental, so Shimon would have had to have stipulated that, and if he did not make that clear, then he cannot take the fruits of the fruit trees, because the fruit trees are included in the rental. And if the minig is that the fruit trees are not included, so then they're not included. Again, pshita is, that's obvious. Well, this is the opposite kind of situation, where most sharecroppers take home 75% of the yield, and this sharecropper says, I'll only take home 66% of the yield. So, Ma'uditema, I may have thought to say, Omerle, that Reuven could say to Shimon, the reason why I gave you more, adaita the yaivos liba ilanus, because I figured that I was, you were going to let me eat the fruits of the trees. But again, if Reuven was planning to eat the fruits of the trees, and it's a place where the trees are generally not included, that would have had to have been part of the deal initially. And just like they divide up the tvua, the produce, they also divide up the straw, different kinds of straw. Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef bebavel nahigu, that the minig and bavel is the lo yaive tivno la'arisa, that they don't give straw to the sharecropper. L'manaf kamina, okay, who cares? Why is that important? Well, if there is a person who does supply straw, that is not sort of an indication that that's the accepted practice to provide straw. No, in Bavel they don't provide straw. He's doing whatever he wants, but that isn't the generally accepted custom, and that is not what's expected. And Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef, Buchru v'tafso v'akvasa, those are different. So, okay, so this is about the responsibility. Who's responsible for what? Who has to pay for what? Who has to do what? The landowner, the sharecropper. So, Buchru v'tafso v'akvasa, those are putting this kind of fence of sorts around the field. Around the field, they would dig a ditch, which would create a fence, and then they would take the dirt that they dug and stack it up along the edges of the field, and it would create some kind of border fence kind of thing. Vikani dechizru, and also the canes that would create the pegs in a thorn fence, I guess, to keep out people and animals and things. So I guess there would be all of these pegs, and then there would be thorns in between the pegs. So the pegs themselves, the balabais, right? Everything listed so far, this wall, this pegs, the balabais needs to supply that. V'chizra gufe, but the thorns themselves, the arisa, the sharecropper would have to come up with. Klala demilsa, the general rule being, kol ikar balma, anything that's sort of crucial for the security of the field, the balabais, the owner of the field, needs to supply that. Nitirusi is certa, but if it would be considered extra protection, so then extra security, so then the arisa, the sharecropper, would provide that. Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef, mora vizavila, the hoe and the shovel, vidavla and the bucket, vizanuka and some kind of leather, container of sorts. The balabais, balabais needs to supply those. Arisa, ovid, be'yoreh, but the sharecropper makes these little capillary stream thingies to bring water to the field. Just like they divide up the wine, they also divide up the canes and the prunings. Konim ma'avid tayu. What's the deal with these canes? Amri dever biane konim amuchlokin, peeled canes that the bark has been removed. Sheboen ma'abidin esagafonim, that they use to stand up the grapevines. V'shnei misapkin is akonim, and both of them, both the sharecropper and the balabais provide the canes. Lamali hakam. Matam ka'amar, this is what it's saying. Matam shneim cholkin bikarim. How come they both divide between themselves the canes? Mishum d'shneim masapkin esakanim, because they both provide the canes. Well, that was the first Mishnah of Perak HaMakabel Es Hasodeh Mechaveru. We're learning about sharecropper agreements and stuff, and that's going to take us for a bunch of dafs now. I'm really excited that we're on sort of the last major push in Masechta BavaMetzia. I'm thrilled. I don't know if you're thrilled. See ya.